In Episode 7, titled Clarify Shared Responsibility Matrix, we tackle one of the most deceptively simple yet crucial tools in any cloud authorization effort, making responsibilities explicit before someone assumes the other side is handling them. A shared responsibility matrix is not a formality. It is the operational handshake that keeps boundaries, evidence, and accountability visible as systems evolve. When it is vague, incidents multiply and findings follow. When it is clear, assessments flow cleanly because everyone knows where their proof lives. This episode builds a working picture of how to define, populate, and maintain that matrix so control ownership is never ambiguous, even when multiple service layers and organizations intersect. The matrix's purpose is to document control ownership across all layers of service hardware, platform, application, and customer use, so every participant knows who implements, who verifies, and who provides evidence for each security requirement. Within the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, or FedRAMP, this is vital because authorization depends on showing complete control coverage with no gaps or overlaps that could leave risk unmanaged. The document itself is usually tabular, but conceptually it is a map of accountability. Each row represents a control, and each column an actor. Filling it accurately means translating abstract policy statements into specific operational tasks tied to artifacts, responsible teams, and review frequencies. A well-maintained matrix becomes the single source of truth whenever control inheritance or shared operations raise questions. The primary actors usually include the cloud service provider, CSP, after first use, the underlying platform or infrastructure provider, any external service providers that deliver specialized functions, and the customer agency consuming the cloud service. Each brings part of the control story. The platform provider covers physical, environmental, and foundational network protections. The CSP implements logical controls, access management, and secure configuration of the service layer. External services contribute inherited functions such as content delivery or logging, and the customer agency enforces usage policies and end-user management. Listing these actors side by side exposes how shared responsibility actually looks in practice, which prevents the all-too-common everyone and no one problem that surfaces during audits. For every control, the matrix distinguishes whether it is implemented, inherited, shared, or customer-specific. Implemented means your organization designs, operates, and documents the control. Inherited means a trusted provider has already implemented and maintains it, usually under its own authorization that you can reference. Shared means both parties contribute. Perhaps one provides technology enforcement while the other manages procedures or oversight. Customer-specific means the consuming agency performs the action entirely within its own environment. The discipline here is categorization with evidence in mind. Do not call a control shared merely because more than one name appears in the workflow. Call it shared only when distinct, measurable responsibilities exist on both sides and the total satisfies the requirement end to end. Consider an example: encryption. The CSP manages application-level encryption and key rotation policies, while a hardware security module service from the platform provider supplies the cryptographic boundary and secure key storage. The matrix entry would show shared with two clear cells. The CSP implements key management procedures and monitors key use. The platform provider maintains the HSM hardware, firmware updates, and access segregation controls. Each column lists specific evidence configuration snapshots, logs of key rotation events, and the provider's compliance attestations. When reviewers read this row, they can see who does what and how both sides prove it. That precision converts what could be a finger-pointing risk into an audit-ready collaboration. A recurring pitfall is the vague, shared entry that lacks measurable deliverables or traceable evidence. Teams sometimes write joint responsibility and move on, believing the phrase itself conveys alignment. In reality, it hides uncertainty. When an incident or a finding arises, neither party can produce proof because no one knows who owned the logs, who triaged alerts, or who closed the ticket. The fix is explicitness. Name the artifact, the action, and the owner. If the CSP retains incident logs for 90 days and the platform provider for a year, write both durations. If the customer agency receives only summary reports, state that too. A clear row in the matrix protects everyone when auditors or investigators ask hard questions months later. A quick win is to add artifact examples for every shared responsibility. Instead of leaving the evidence cell empty, list real items, system configurations, service tickets, change approvals, or vulnerability scans. This does not need to be exhaustive, but it should illustrate the kind of proof each party produces. When teams can point to a folder, a dashboard, or a database table, ambiguity dissolves. Reviewers appreciate specificity, and internal owners gain a checklist they can follow during control maintenance. Over time, this habit transforms the matrix from a static document into a live reference that guides daily operations and ensures continuity when personnel change. An illustrative scenario helps ground the concept. Imagine incident logging for a multi-tenant application. The CSP collects logs from application components and forwards them to a centralized analytics system. The platform provider logs network-level events within the virtual private cloud. The customer agency subscribes to summary reports and holds authority to trigger escalations. The matrix row for audit and accountability must show who collects, who correlates, and who escalates. In this case, collection is split by layer, correlation rests with the CSP, and escalation belongs jointly to the CSP and agency under a defined contact protocol. Listing each part clarifies where timelines and evidence originate, preventing blind spots during real incidents or annual testing. A mental rehearsal strengthens memory. Speak each control's owner and required proof aloud. For example, say, access control, CSP implements, platform enforces, agency reviews quarterly reports. The physical act of articulation exposes weak spots you might overlook on paper. If you cannot state an owner confidently or cannot describe a proof artifact, the matrix row is incomplete. This oral check is especially useful before meetings with assessors or authorizing officials. Clarity in conversation mirrors clarity in documentation, and your ability to describe the ownership chain becomes an informal readiness indicator. A handy memory anchor condenses the rule set. Who does, what proves, when reported. Who does clarifies responsibility. What proves ensures evidence exists. When reported anchors timing and cadence. These three questions are sufficient to test any matrix entry for completeness. If you can answer them in one sentence per actor, you are safe. If you hesitate on any, rework the entry before depending on it in an assessment. Many organizations ingrain this anchor into training or onboarding, turning it into a call and response that reinforces the idea that control ownership without proof is only half a control. A mini review should follow each matrix update to check for gaps, overlaps, and acceptance by all stakeholders. Gaps appear when no actor is assigned. Overlaps appear when two actors claim the same task without coordination. Lack of acceptance appears when an actor disagrees with what the document says. Walk through the updated rows in a short working session with representatives from engineering, operations, compliance, and customer liaison roles. The meeting's success metric is consensus. Everyone nods when their responsibilities are read aloud. That mutual understanding is worth more than cosmetic edits because it prevents friction later when controls are tested under time pressure. To make the matrix operational, add an onboarding step that briefs every new team member on their obligations within it. New engineers, security analysts, and managers should hear a 5-minute overview showing where the matrix lives, how to read it, and what artifacts they are expected to maintain. Without this briefing, ownership fades as staff turn over, and auditors will find controls that once worked drifting into neglect. Embedding the matrix into onboarding normalizes accountability and keeps collective memory fresh even as the organization scales or restructures. Verification must remain continuous, not occasional. Revisit the matrix after any architecture change, service addition, or vendor switch because ownership rarely stays static. A new logging service may shift evidence storage. A new identity provider may transfer authentication duties. A new infrastructure release may alter inherited controls. Treat the matrix like a living diagram that must match reality. A short quarterly review ensures alignment, but trigger-based updates, whenever something structural changes, are even better. Document revision dates and approvers so that during audits you can show a traceable maintenance history, reinforcing the idea that accountability is actively managed, not just declared. In conclusion, clarity in shared responsibility is a security control of its own. The matrix reveals who implements each safeguard, what proof supports it, and how timing and communication maintain trust between providers and agencies. Publish the current version in your internal repository, confirm each actor's acknowledgement, and socialize it across teams so ownership lives in daily work rather than in a forgotten spreadsheet. When responsibilities are explicit, assessments become straightforward, incidents resolve faster, and partnerships strengthen because accountability is no longer implied, it is documented, verified, and understood by everyone involved. Your next action is direct. Finalize the matrix, circulate it for sign-off, and make it part of every status meeting until clarity becomes habit. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.